Hi, I'm Walter D. Donnie Kennedy, Chief of Heritage Operations for the Sons of Confederate Veterans. As most of you may know, April is Confederate History Month, and we're here today with the Deputy Chief of Heritage Promotion, Ron Kennedy, and we're going to talk about Confederate history, and especially as it relates to Confederate veterans. Ron, tell us a little bit about the history of the South and its noble tradition of military service to these United States.
Well, the Scotch-Irish people of the South have always been great in military tradition. During the War for Southern Independence, the South, according to Dr. Grady McWhinney, about 25% of the Confederate soldiers died during the war. This was a tremendous sacrifice from a small population. As a matter of fact, to put that into sort of a modern-day comparison, had the United States lost during World War II commensurate to what the South lost during the War for Southern Independence, instead of 300,000 losses during World War II, the United States would have lost 6 million soldiers.
Any other country, or could you think of any other countries that have sacrificed that much in their own defense as the Confederate South did, it defended itself against Yankee invasion?
Certainly no one in the Western Hemisphere, but you'd have to go to Russia, where there was like several millions of people during World War II.
20 million, if I remember correctly.
Yes, 20 million lost. But no one in Germany. Matter of fact, one historian equated the loss total, civilian and military, during this War for Southern Independence. Bring it up to 2015 population, it would have been 3 million casualties. Japan only lost 2.9 million.
Wow.
During World War II.
And they had 2 big bombs dropped on them.
They had 2 big bombs dropped.
Well, and what you're saying in essence is that the people of the South supported this effort to maintain its independence. But what about the history of Southerners before the war and after the war as far as it relates to their military service to the United States?
Well, of course, most of us know that the war for Revolutionary War in 1776, during the South, it was almost like a civil war, but the main victory was at Yorktown, where we won our independence.
And Yorktown is Virginia.
Virginia.
For those.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming everyone knows. But the important thing is to look at how patriotic the South has been post-War for Southern Independence. Several Confederate generals, former Confederate generals, served in the Spanish-American War, of course wearing the national uniform.
Well, that's interesting because one of the problems that the United States was having at that time, they were a little bit afraid of what the South would do. That was only about 30 years after Appomattox, after the defeat, and they were wondering, what would these Southerners do if we go to war? And what did they do?
They put on the national uniform and they performed just great service to the reunited country. During World War I, which is 1917, sons and grandsons of Confederate veterans served, and the South had a tremendous number of Medal of Honor recipients during the war. One of them, of course, being Alvin York, the most highly decorated soldier during World War I.
From Tennessee.
From Tennessee.
Southern state, by the way.
Of course. Now, the really interesting thing is that the state that had the most Medal of Honors given in the South was South Carolina. Well, South Carolina is the very hotbed of secession and states' rights, and John C. Calhoun. And yet they had the most. They had, for every 200,000 population, they had one recipient of the Medal of Honor. Now you compare that to New York, which had, for every 400,000 population, they had one recipient. So the South, no doubt, has shown its dedication. And I think that's why, beginning in 1906, running all the way down to 1957, the United States Congress passed laws, rules, and regulations that honored Confederate veterans.
So in essence, when we're honoring and protecting the memory of Confederate veterans, we're honoring and protecting the memory of all veterans.
Absolutely.
Is that not true? Well, that's very interesting. You know, you're talking about World War I. That reminds me, there was a group of soldiers or a division of the United States Army known as the Dixie Division. It was the 31st United States Infantry Division. And the Dixie Division, they were composed in World War I of grandsons of Confederate veterans. And they were very proud of who they were, and they displayed the Confederate flag. They had songs in which they were praising their Confederate heritage, and they were talking about how Lee, Jackson, and all the good Confederate soldiers, how they fought. The sons and grandsons, were going to do likewise for their country also. This is an interesting fact to me, that you have the Dixie Division here. No one was afraid of the word Dixie. And you could see even they had bands, the Dixie Division band, their color guard, right? It carried the Confederate flag. No one was insulted. No one had a heart attack. No one demanded that this racist symbol be removed. It's only been in the last, about 30 or 40 years that we've seen this attack, not just on the Confederacy, but all traditional American values. So
right.
What's going on there?
Well, but it's important to note too, during World War I, World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam, even up to Afghanistan, you can find Southern soldiers taking the battle flag with them. It's part of their heritage. It's part of their pride in their nation. But today, we're having a neo-Marxist attack against all Christian American values. Their value is there are no values. You know, and when you destroy values, you create chaos, you create a vacuum, and that's what's happening now. So it's not just the Confederate monuments, Confederate flags, and Confederate veterans that's being attacked. It's all veterans, everyone who defends their home.
Yeah. And I think we've made this point several times in a lot of our videos with the Sons of Confederate Veterans, that what's being attacked now, the people who are attacking the Confederacy, they also attack the display of the Ten Commandments, of the Christian cross. Eventually they attack the display of the Christian flag. So we are on the front line of defending traditional American values. But what is so upsetting to me is to see how well the United States at one time all Americans were very pro-South. The United States Post Office, for example, has just a number of postage stamps commemorating Confederate veterans, right? They actually had a stamp commemorating Confederate veterans. Robert E. Lee, Jefferson Davis, the President of the Confederacy, Stonewall Jackson, Stan Waddy, all of these Confederate generals have been memorialized by the U.S. Postal Service. Then on top of that, in 1924, the federal Congress, the Congress of the United States, passed unanimously a resolution that said that they were going to, that promoted the minting of a coin, a 50-cent piece commemorative coin, that celebrated, as they said, the valor of the Southern soldiers. I think it said soldiers of the South, the valor of the soldiers of the South. They were not afraid of that back then.
And it was minted in pure silver too.
Yes, it wasn't
copper clad.
It wasn't fake currency. It was real currency, and they're still in circulation. You can get them. And on the reverse side of the coin is a picture of Stonewall Jackson and Robert E. Lee. Again, these people, they were honored, and they were people that were heroes that we were to look up to and to model our lives after. What has happened to America in the last 30 or 40 years?
Well, the really question to ask is, at one time there was reconciliation.
Right.
A feeling of goodwill between the North and the South, between the sons and grandsons and great-grandsons of the Confederacy as well as the Union. There was this feeling of reconciliation. But that has been broken.
Right.
That deal has been broken. So are we, in fact, a part of one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all? Where's the liberty and justice for the sons and grandsons and great-grandsons of the Confederacy? That is the great problem.
Yeah, I will remember at the end of Reconstruction, there was a tacit agreement between the North and the South. And essentially the South said, we'll support the United States, we'll be loyal, we'll not try to secede again. But all heroes, whether it's Abraham Lincoln or Stonewall Jackson, whether it was U.S. Grant or Jefferson Davis, they will be American heroes. And for a long time, that tacit agreement remained in effect. And in the Spanish-American War, World War I, every war since then, Southerners have been on the forefront of defending this nation. We've held up our end of that tacit agreement. But as Daniel Webster, the famous senator from Massachusetts once said, a bargain broken on one side is broken on both sides. Those people are not keeping their tacit agreement with the South. Our heroes are under attack. All American, traditional American values are under attack. The Confederacy is just the first low-hanging fruit that they're attacking. Ron, we're about to run out of time here, so we're going to close this segment up. And I would like to invite people to go to Make Dixie Great Again, our website, Make Dixie Great Again, and take a look at our videos that we have that pertain to Confederate veterans and honor all American veterans and surely honor our Confederate veteran. Thank you, Ron, for showing up and being here, and thank you, folks, for watching.